Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good afternoon, everybody, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before we read the land of acknowledgement, though, I just want to do a couple of house cleaning items. Please silence all your cell phones when in chamber. Members of public, when speaking at the podium, please make sure you announce your name and adjust the mic so that you're speaking directly into the podium, as this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The Township of Oro-Medonte acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people and ancestral territory of the Huron-Wendat. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. It continues today as the home for diverse Indigenous people, including the historic Métis community in Penetang-Washing. The Anishinaabe people continue to have an enduring relationships with this land, specifically the Chippewas Rama First Nations, the Chippewa Tri-Council, and the Williams Treaties First Nations. The Huron-Wendat Nation also continues to pay respect and protect their ancestors and heritage on this land. We honor the Indigenous history and culture that has thrived for millennia in this territory and the treaties that bind us together as partners in the spirit of a shared, sustainable, and prosperous future. We are all treaty people. Our commitment begins with acknowledging the truth so that we can move forward towards reconciliation. Madam Clerk, may we have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting of Wednesday, April 24th, 2024 be received and adopted as amended to add item 12A, ES 2024-06, Michelle Jacoby, Director, Environmental Services, Re-User Fee Streetlights, exemption from taxation bylaw.
All in favor? That is carried. May we have a motion to go past 4 hours if necessary, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that Rule 14.20A, as per the procedural bylaw number 2023-043, be suspended in order to allow the meeting to proceed past the 4-hour adjournment requirement if necessary.
All in favor? That is carried. Members, are there anyone to disclose pecuniary interest at this time? Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Declared on item 4C, short-term rentals.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? I have a pecuniary interest to declare on item 16A. I have provided ATM services for the event organizers who are applying for a SOP later in the meeting. Seeing no other pecuniary interest, may we have, before we have a motion to go, Councillor Bard is planning on attending. He's just been delayed a bit, so he will be joining us, and he may be with us by the time we come out of closed. Madam Clerk, may we have a motion to go into close, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that we do now go into closed session at 2:34 p.m. to discuss litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, cannabis, short-term rentals, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, decommissioned fire halls, 1904 Oldbury Road East, Rugby, 375 Line 11 South, Hawkstone.
Everyone's heard the motion. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. We'll see everyone in closed. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May we have a motion to rise from close, please?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that we do now rise at 3:07 p.m. and report on closed session items 4C and D.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is passed. May we have a motion for item 4C emanating from close, please, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that the confidential correspondence dated April 22nd, 2024, and presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, Chris Williams, and Laura Dean, Aird & Barrels LLP, re-litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, cannabis, short-term rentals, be received. That staff and legal counsel proceed as directed by counsel.
Madam Clerk, and I just asked...
We'll have to separate it out.
We'll have to split the one item
Okay.
thank you.
So we'll just do cannabis, litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, cannabis be received, and that staff and legal counsel proceed as directed by counsel.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. And may we have the second one regards to short-term rentals, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that the confidential correspondence dated April 22nd, 2024, and presented by Robin Dunn, CAO, Chris Williams, and Laura Dean, Aird & Barrels LLP, re-litigation affecting the municipality, solicitor-client privilege, short-term rentals be received, and that staff and legal counsel proceed as directed by counsel.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have some time items today, 16A, 16B at 4.
Mr. Mayor, we do have another.
Oh, my apologies.
Motion
No,
now
sorry, I did.
closed.
My apologies. I need a motion for item 4D, please.
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the confidential verbal information presented by Yvonne Aubuchon, clerk, proposed or pending acquisition and disposition of land by the municipality or local board, decommissioned fire halls, 1904 Old Barry Road East, Rugby, 375 Line 11 South, Hawkstone, be received. That staff proceed as directed by council.
All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. That takes us through our closed session items. We have we have deputations at 5:15 and a presentation at 5:30. We also have a timed item at 4:30 to deal with 16A and 16B. So we'll move through and juggle around the schedule from there. So item 5, minutes of council meetings. May we have a motion for the April 10th draft minutes, please, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the draft minutes of the council meeting held on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, be received and adopted as printed and circulated. And Mr. Mayor, before you call the vote, I just would like to make note that we will be removing Robin Dunn, CAO, from the closed session as he was not in attendance for that item.
No, perfect. Thank you very much. You've heard Councillor Shell?
I believe I was absent on the 10th.
You may, yeah. Was it in the minutes as well? Okay,
Thank you.
okay, yeah,
We'll note that.
okay. Thank you. Okay, so. Yeah, it's already noted in the minutes. Okay, no problem. So, hearing the motion, is there any comments or any other amendments that anyone saw? None? We'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Recognitions of achievements, we have none this week to announce. Public meetings, we have none. So the deputations we will skip over. This brings us to identifications from the public. Are there any items on the agenda that the public needs moved up in order for time commitments they have? Seeing none. Open forum, Madam Clerk, do we have any registrations from the public for open forum?
No, Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Is there anybody in chamber who would like to speak to an item on the agenda regarding open forum today? Seeing none. Reports of municipal officers for actions. That brings us to 11A.
Mr. Mayor, since the deputation has to do with item 11A, perhaps we can move down the line to the next report
Sure.
and deal with that after the deputation is
Well,
heard.
thank you for catching that. May we have a motion for item 11B, please?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that OCS 2024-14, Justin Matris, Manager, Infrastructure and Capital Projects, re-award of tender OCS RFT 24005, Sugarbush Drainage Improvements be received and adopted. That tender OCS RFT 24005, Sugarbush Drainage Improvements be awarded to KJ Excavating Inc. in the amount of $1,858,354 plus HST, that the Director of Operations and Community Services be authorized to execute the appropriate agreement on behalf of the township.
Thank you very much. Council, I'll open the floor if anyone has any questions or comments regarding this matter. Seeing none, I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we have a motion for item 11C, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that ES 2024-04, Michelle Jacoby, Director, Environmental Services, re-award for ES RFQ 2024-011, supply and delivery of one full-size half-ton four-wheel drive crew cab pickup truck be received and adopted. That ES RFQ 2024-011, supply and delivery of one full half-ton four-wheel drive crew cab pickup truck be awarded to Jim Wilson Chevrolet Buick GMC in the amount of $55,000 plus HST. That Director of Environmental Services be authorized to execute the appropriate agreement on behalf of the township, and that the bidders be thanked and notified under the Director of Environmental Services signature.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The council, the floor is now open for discussion or comments. Seeing none. Are there any comments with respect to the draft motion? None? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. May we have a motion for item 11D, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that ES 2024-05, Michelle Jacoby, Director of Environmental Services, Horseshoe Zone 1 drinking water integration fee review be received and adopted. That the Director of Environmental Services authorize KPMG LLP to complete the Horseshoe Zone 1 drinking water integration fee review in accordance with their quoted upset amount of $25,000 plus HST. That the Horseshoe Zone 1 drinking water integration project be paused pending fee review.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll open the floor now for discussions or comments on this matter. Seeing none. Any questions regarding the draft motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we have a motion for item 11E, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that FES 2024-02, Ralph Dominelli, Executive Staff Officer, Fire Chief, re-award for FES RFP 24010 for the supply and delivery of one fire pumper truck be received and adopted. That FES RFP 24101, supply and delivery of one pumper truck be awarded to Dependable Emergency Vehicles in the amount of $947,476 plus HST, and that a $20,000 contingency fund be allotted. That the Executive Staff Officer, Fire Chief, be authorized to execute the appropriate agreement on behalf of the township, and that the bidders be thanked and notified under the Executive Staff Officer, Fire Chief signature.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I'll open the floor for discussions, questions, or comments. Seeing none. Any concerns with the draft motion? None. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. May we have a motion for item 11F, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Shell, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that FI 2024-05, Nellie Morrow, Director of Finance, Chief Financial Officer, re 2023 Audit Planning Report be received and adopted. That the Mayor and Deputy Mayor execute the Audit Planning Report to the year ending December 31st, 2023 on behalf of Council. That the municipal audit firm, Baker Tilly, KDN LLP, be appointed and advised of Council's decision under the Director of Finance, Chief Financial Officer's signature.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Open the floor now for comments or questions. Councillor Young.
Yeah, having read that report, perhaps Mr. Baker, whoever is prepared the report, my issue is we all ran on a platform of openness and transparency. And I note that this is a confidential report. Perhaps it's best that they answer when they're here, I guess, why. For years we've heard of allegations of corruption, at least I have in certain emails, and that these were allegations only. And again, I come back to the fact that if it can be shared after review by council, I suppose, without redactions, or at least if there is a redaction, that it be explained why it is redacted, I think it should be done.
Thank you for the question. CEO Dunn, would you like to maybe help provide some comment back to Councillor Young, or some things are, I will chime in just briefly, so some things because of, privacy issues, will get redacted. But if CAO Dunn, would you care to
absolutely,
bring
Mr.
clarity?
Mayor. I'll take a first attempt to reply to the concerns from Councillor Young. I know that the treasurer will follow up. Councillor Young, every year the auditor does a separate deliberation with the chief administrative officer, and we go through every potential scenario that the auditor flags or that I raise with respect to any impropriety or any risks associated with our financial systems, and that happens annually. It's also an undertaking, Councillor Young, with the mayor, and Mayor Greenlaw had that discussion as we went through the last audit cycle, and it's done independently with the mayor and with the chief administrative officer, and at the end of the day it's also done with the treasurer, the chief financial officer. I think your question is all about transparency and the request for the auditor at the time of presentation that they would address some of those things. I think that is a good thing to address if there are any findings, which there have not been in my tenure, Councillor. But could I ask Ms. Morrow to provide some clarity? And I think I understood your question, Councillor Young, but if I didn't answer it appropriately, let Ms. Morrow go, and then we can try and provide some additional clarity.
Hi, thank you, through you, Robin, and to you, Mr. Young. I do believe we've had conversations about transparency and the redaction of information. This particular report is not really about redacting any information. This report is really about giving the steps that the auditors are going to perform to make sure that we have accurate and financial statements that are not misstated. Through his process, as Mr. Dunn has commented, they do special auditing to identify any risk areas. In my report, there was a section that talks about the responsibility of management as well as the responsibility of council. And one part of it does talk about if there are concerns that council has that they would like to discuss with the auditors, they can do so, and they should do so. If there are issues that they feel that need additional attention, and I am totally open to, and we should set a time to meet with the auditors if that is how you'd like to proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow. Supplemental?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying, Ms. Morrow, and since I've been on this council, I know that you've opened things up and we have become more transparent. And I can appreciate the fact that if, in fact, having read the report, if there's suspected frauds involved, I can understand that being redacted to maintain the integrity of the police investigation. But just coming back, I would like to see more openness and transparency, I can tell you. And I haven't seen, in my limited involvement in looking at financial documents, and I'm no accountant, that I haven't seen anywhere when something is redacted, there's an explanation as to why it was redacted. And I've heard that certainly from members of the public, there's no explanation. So if it's got to be redacted, there should be at least an explanation why.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
through you, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I would just like to add, I will take that in advisement and I will discuss it with our auditors to make sure that that can be provided to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to CAO Dunn and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Young, when you raised that question, I was trying to remember when I have scheduled a consultation with the auditor, Mr. Stayenga, and you may recall Richard's presentation with the last set of financials. I am with Mr. Stayenga virtually on the morning of the 3rd, and I've made a notation, Councillor, as has Ms. Morrow. My discussion with the auditor will flag some of those things that you raised today.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could comment just in response to the potential for a fraud risk. When an audit's performed, there's no materiality or threshold for fraud. The fraud for $1 would be looked at the same for as fraud for $1 million. So there's no seriousness. It's fraud, right? So, we've had a clean audit opinion for a number of years. So, that does give credence to the idea that these are appropriately stated financial statements without, the threat of fraud. If I may, Mr. Mayor, my question to Treasurer Morrow would be, how do we improve the timing of this audit, not this audit, but next year's audit? Because I find it quite untenable for financial statements to be fully audited and signed off. If I look at the timeline here, I'm guessing it to be August of 2024 for statements that the period ended in December 31st, 2023. So my question is two parts. How do we plan next year's audit so that we're ahead of the curve? And if there's any supports that you or your team need, how do we get those to you so that you're able to meet those new timelines? I think it would be my preference for audited financial statements to be ready pretty soon after the period is over.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Mr. Clark. I 100% agree with you that the timelines of our audit should be sooner, and I would prefer that they be prepared and finalized the first quarter of the year. The audit for 2022 was finalized in the late part of 2023, so that for this year, as you indicated, was not really a possibility. Although I want to say that we are much further ahead than we were last year in preparing working papers for the auditors this year. And so I feel confident that we will meet that goal for next year. What needs to happen in the resources in my department, as I indicated in some of my budget 2025 information, even executive summaries last year, staffing is a big issue. Resources are a big issue. It's not just here at the municipality, it's across the board, and it includes the consultants we use, the auditors we use, also have staffing issues. So I had been in communications with our auditor immediately after our presentation of our 2022 financial statements, planning for the 2024 and 2023 years to make sure that we meet those deadlines more effectively. I'm hoping the auditors are going to be in our office starting May 20th for the rest of that week. And I'm hoping that we've asked the audit team be almost near to done when they come to visit us, so that the following week we would be able to have a pretty good draft set of financial statements so I can meet the FIR deadlines and move forward with presenting something to council.
Supplemental, Councillor Clark.
Fantastic. I appreciate that, Treasurer Morrow. And I think, as part of our strategic plan, we wanted to become a best practices organization. So you and I have had conversations about not every municipality does meet those FIR deadlines, but we want to be a best practice organization. So we want to meet those deadlines and be a leader for the municipal realm. Do you have any indication, Treasurer Morrow, whether or not Baker Tilly, I know you may have not started this discussion yet, but are they capable of getting the audit ready for 2024's fiscal year end prior to April of 2025?
The conversation I had with our auditors, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Conversations I had with our auditors is yes, and that they would like to start out by doing an interim as well in the later part of 2024, so that they're prepared for the 2025 year. So interim audit involves some additional steps that they are now doing for this 2023 fiscal period now, but if what we're planning to have is that those interim procedures be done in 2024, so that a good part of the audit is done before they come in April. So that is the plan.
Fantastic, Treasurer Morrow. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Nellie. Any other questions in regards to this item? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. May we have a motion for item 11G, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Bard, second by Lavoie. Be it resolved that FI 2024-06, Nellie Morrow, Director of Finance, Chief Financial Officer, re 2024 final tax levy be received and adopted, that the applicable tax rate bylaw 2024-044, a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all amounts required during the year and for levying the tax rates for the year 2024 be enacted, that the Director of Finance, Chief Financial Officer be authorized and directed to do all things necessary to give effect to this resolution.
Okay. The floor is now open for discussion. Are there any questions or concerns in regards to this or comments? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now we are now at item 12, reports of municipal officers for information only, and there is one report to be received. This item was added in conjunction with the finance report. It is intended for the clarification to close out a previous council resolution from a deputation report. Mr. Jacoby, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, sir, I don't. That's a great summary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, the floor is open. Are there any questions or comments regarding the report?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion.
We're getting there. We're not quite to you yet. I know you're
Okay.
usually number one in our heart, and you still are, but can we have the motion then, please, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Young, seconded by Shall. Be it resolved that the report as listed under item 12, reports of municipal officers for information only, be received.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
And Mr. Mayor, we do have members in the gallery now who perhaps are confused that our agenda has jumped somewhat. So if we could do a recap so that they understand which items are still to be heard.
So do you want me to start off with the land acknowledgement? I'm just kidding you, you know. Members of the public that have just joined us, so we have some timed items at 4:30 and at 5:15. So those components we've kind of jumped over. If people come in, so we've been past the open forum component, but if you did have something, we can go back to that if you'd like to speak to a matter on the agenda. But at this point, we are getting through everything else before those items become before us. And we're now at item 13, which is reports of the municipal council. So I guess, are you fine right now? Did you want to participate in the open forum component that we've kind of passed? But if you're just here as a participant and an observer, then I'll continue on if that's okay. Continue on. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, so reports of municipal, is there anyone that has an update from county or partners or agencies that you are a part of? Seeing, oh, sorry, Councillor Schell.
Yes, nothing yet from NVCA. We have our meeting on Friday, and then the doctor's retention meeting is tomorrow. But I know NVCA would like me to notify the public that the water levels are high throughout the county due to the weather we've been having, and to take care around the waterways.
Yeah, no, correct. Even Simcoe's high, and they figure it'll be at least 2 weeks before they drop the water level in Simcoe. So thank you for that update. And if there is none other, we'll move on to announcements. Are there any announcements from members of council? Well, the one I'd like to announce is that the township has launched its 2024 rain barrel sale. So you can visit our website at rainbarrel.ca to check out the items for sale and place your orders. There's not just rain barrels, but diverters and a lot of accessories. And the most important thing here is this is a great initiative for the environmental services. So I encourage everyone to check it out and participate in the program. Any other announcements? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there an item on the consent agenda that anyone would like to have pulled for separate discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, may we have a motion to approve or accept the consent agenda?
Moved by Young, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the staff recommendations with respect to the items listed under consent agenda correspondence be adopted as printed.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. So that brings us to 16A, and I've actually recused myself from this item, so I will pass the chair over to Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And Madam Clerk, may I have a motion for item 16A, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Clark. Be it resolved that correspondence dated April 4th, 2024 from Lisa Groves, Barrie Automotive Flea Market, BAFM, request to designate events as municipally significant, June 6th to the 9th, 2024, 40th Annual Spring BAFM, and September 5th to the 9th, 2024, the 53rd Annual Fall BAFM be received. That council designates the following events to be municipally significant. July 6th to 9th, 2024, 40th Annual Spring BAFM, and September 5th to the 9th, 2024, 53rd Annual Fall BAFM, that the applicant be advised of council's decision under the mayor's signature to assist in their application to the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Is there any comment with regard to the 40th Annual Spring Barrie Automotive Flea Market or the 53rd Annual Barrie Automotive Flea Market as being significant? Seeing no comments. Any comment on the motion itself? No comments or questions. May I call the vote, please? All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. I return the chair to the mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy. So that brings us, I believe, Madam Clerk, there is nothing else we can cover off on the agenda at this time until 4:30. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, we can do the bylaws because the tax levy motion or report has been done.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion for the draft bylaw under item 18, please.
Moved by Shell, seconded by Young, be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-004, a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all amounts required during the year and for levying the tax rates for the year 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, be engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
Call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that is passed. And there were no notice of motions on the agenda for this week under item 17. And we will not be going back into close because we finished all our closed session items earlier. So we will now recess, take a break until 4:30 when our first presentation will commence. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we're live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I want to apologize for everybody for the delay. We got ahead of ourselves. I want to welcome Mr. Ewart to council. And so we are now at item 16B. And Mr. Ewart, please proceed when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Worship, and good afternoon to you and council, and thank you for having me virtually. I'm in a different office this afternoon for reasons of having to be elsewhere, but I greatly appreciate the opportunity to attend before council virtually this afternoon. And the purpose of doing so, Your Worship, is to deliver the report that has been provided arising from a complaint involving a member of council being contraventions of the municipal code of conduct. Your Worship, the date of the report is April 19, 2024, and I'm trusting that members of council have had the opportunity to review the document in advance of today. The background facts, Your Worship, appear at page 5. It's simply stated is that the facts involve a public meeting of November the 26th, 2023, at which the member of council was present. And it's important to note that this was not a regular meeting of council, but rather a town hall meeting, which was held, I believe, in the hamlet of Hawkstone, which the member of council was in attendance. And the crux of the matter, Your Worship, as council no doubt is aware, is the documentation which was referred to by the member of council at that particular meeting. And the documentation was the same documents which had formed the subject of an earlier report by myself, dated dated November 14, 2023. And it was on that basis of the allegation that the member of council referred to, I'm going to call the document what it was a factum that was prepared by the Oro-Medonte Association for Responsible STRs. And the allegation was that the member of council, by referring to that document as a decision of the divisional court, which served to legalize short-term rentals in the township of Oro-Medonte, was in fact a binding decision of the divisional court. And the concern with the nature of the complaint itself, Your Worship, is that those statements, did they serve to contravene the suggestion of sections 4, and I just want to refer to them specifically as I've identified in the report. It's at section 4.1. 4.1 of the Municipal Code of Conduct for the Township of Oro-Medonte contains several sections which sets out what I would refer to as general obligations. And section 4.1 provides as follows, that a member shall make every effort to act with good faith and care, seek to advance the public interest with honesty, abstain from making statements that ought to be known to be false or with the intent to mislead council or the public, and H, accurately communicate the decisions of council and respect council's decision-making process, even if they disagree with council's ultimate determination and rulings. It's important to note, I think, Your Worship, that when I commence an inquiry or deal with an allegation of a breach of the code of conduct, I am guided by the complaints. It's not my role to go farther afield to see whether or not any other relevant sections of the code of conduct would have application or be applicable to the facts that are being alleged. So in that regard, I only contained and confined my inquiry to those 4 sections that were identified as being sections 4.1, A, C, F, and H. It was my ultimate determination that sections 4.1C and H do not have application to the allegations that were being advanced by the complainant. And in doing so, page 8, Your Worship, I did undertake the inquiry with respect to section 4(1)A, and that particular section deals with the allegation that every member shall make every effort to act with good faith and care. And my finding is set out as it relates to that particular section on 4.1A, carrying on to page 9, if you will, Your Worship, that the member did in fact breach section 4.1(A) of the Municipal Code of Conduct for the Corporation of the Township of Oro-Medonte by referring to the factum, which was filed in the Divisional Court File Number DC 22-001-1327 at the Town Hall meeting as a decision of the court, and it's available to anybody who wants to look it up. That statement, Your Worship, was taken from a newspaper report that covered, or newspaper article that covered the events of November the 26th. And the concern with that particular statement was essentially the failure of the member to exercise caution regarding the factum as being representative, if you will, of a decision of the divisional court. And as indicated earlier, that was the crux of my earlier inquiry, where that document was defined, at least by myself, that as to what it in fact represented. And that was set forth in my report of November the 14th. The second concern and second breach, what I found of the Code of Conduct, pertains to section 4.1 brackets F. And that's a prohibition, Your Worship, of making statements, the member of council making statements that they ought to be known to be false or with the intent to mislead council or public. And as set out in my findings, it was that the member did make the statement that he ought to know to be known to be false in referring to that particular factum as a decision of the divisional court. Now, the report itself and my findings stop short of finding a misrepresentation. And the reasons for that, Your Worship, are set out in the report itself, in that I believe that as of November the 26th, the member continued to labor under a misunderstanding as to what this factum constituted. That is to say, it did not represent a decision of the divisional court. And this mistaken belief, which I thought would have been corrected as of November the 14th, apparently was not. Now, in fairness to the member, and I've made note of this in the decision in my report, is the fact that there was the admission by the member in that meeting of November the 26th, and that followed over during the course of an exchange with a member of the public, that he was mistaken as to his understanding. Now, I take issue with that in the sense that I think it's important that that statement did come forward, and I trust that serves to put an end to any sort of confusion perhaps on the member or a misunderstanding as to what that document is. But the fact that it carried on was of concern to myself. I think the member could have informed himself as to exactly what that document was. In fact, had an obligation to do so, I would suggest, Your Worship. And that could have been accomplished either seeking his own legal advice as to what the document represented, or, as indicated in the report itself, Your Worship, to contact me to understand perhaps what I was saying in my report and perhaps provide an assistance to the member as to what these what this document actually represented. And that, as I note in my report, Your Worship, is a role that the Integrity Commissioner performs. I am essentially available to any member of the council who has a question that would have an implication with the application of the Municipal Code of Conduct or with respect to Municipal Conflict of Interest Act as well. So having found that the member did breach section 4.1A and F, I did recommend certain sanctions and reprimand. And in doing so, I think it's worthy of sort of maybe understanding as to how I arrived at the sanctions that I did arrive at. And they're set out in the recommendations, Your Worship. And of course, as council is well aware, I can only make recommendations. It falls to council to make the ultimate decision whether to impose them or not. But the recommendations are as follows: that the council for the corporation of the township, in this case Oro-Medonte, receive this report. 2, that the member of council be subject to a reprimand for having referred to the factum of the Oro-Medonte Association or responsible STRs as a court decision, which served to find that short-term rentals were legal within the township of Oro-Medonte at the November 26, 2023 town hall meeting, contrary to section 4.1A and F of the Municipal Code of Conduct. I further recommended that council direct the treasurer to spend 15 days of compensation pay to the member for services as a member of council, commencing with the next pay period following the passage of this resolution. Fourthly, that the member be provided with a copy of this report and that the member review the code of conduct and in light of the findings of this report. And finally, and perhaps more importantly, that the member, to the extent possible, avoid any further references to the factum, that document, as a decision of the divisional court, as having any legal force and effect on the operation of short-term rentals within the township of Oro-Medonte. It is indicated, Your Worship, this report does not in any way, it should not be interpreted as any statements regarding the operation of short-term rentals in the municipality, but rather the conclusion of this report are limited to the actions of the council member at that meeting of November 26, 2023. And again, arriving at my decision, I did take into account the fact that there had been an earlier reprimand and sanction imposed on the member for the very same documentation, different context, different setting, which I think is important. But again, the misunderstanding that the document constituted any type of legal document of force and effect upon short-term rentals within the municipality. And I was cognizant, as I indicated in the report, Your Worship, that I was aware that the member, I think at this point in time and during the course of my inquiry, is understanding now of what that document represents. And the admission on the November 26th was of some factor in my arriving at the finding, as well as the sanctions being imposed. But it is certainly, I think, worthy of pointing out, this is the second time that I've addressed this matter with this particular member. We communitively, the sanctions are now approaching the upper limit, if you will, of sanctions that I can impose under Section 223 of the Municipal Act. And I trust that this report will serve to put closure for both the member as well as members of the public as to what this document is. There should be no further, my suggestion, further discussion of this. I think it's worthy of pointing out, Your Worship, in conclusion with the recommendations. The Code of Conduct is one of the few tools that that is available to deal with issues involving members of council, and essentially to assure that they abide and adhere to the highest standards of ethical behavior. So in this case, my decision, my finding on this reflects, again, those facts that I identified. And again, from an educational point of view, which I think my role is, as well as that of not being punitive, but rather trying to correct action. I think my report successfully succeeds in that, but ultimately it falls to council to whether to adopt the recommendations or not. So, Your Worship, I'm happy to answer any questions council may have, particularly in arriving at the decision I did, and of course, any recommendations that I arrived at.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ewert, for those comments. I'll open the floor now if anyone would like to make comments. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you to my colleagues and the public, I'd like to give a little bit of history. First of all, I think this was a witch hunt, but I'll just go back here a little bit. For years prior to being elected to council, my wife and I operated a bed and breakfast, now defined as an STR. And I think this is the
Councillor Schell, I apologize for interrupting, but I think we have to stay focused upon
point of order. Can I not continue?
Let me finish, please. The matter before us is to do with the IC's report in regards to your actions regarding a matter that you've recused yourself from. So I would like you to keep those comments confined to the findings in the report and the sanctions issued, please.
I'm leading up to that.
Yes, but we're not here to relitigate the short-term rental issue.
I'm trying to establish where and why these documents came into being. Am I not permitted to do that?
I will give some leniency and see where this goes, but I may ask you to, if you get too far outside. I think what you should try to concentrate your comments to is the actions you've taken and the reasons you've taken those actions on a matter that you've recused yourself from for pecuniary interest.
This was not a council meeting. This was a public meeting that I was invited to attend. And I did not come there to talk about those documents. Those documents were, and you were at that meeting yourself, and Deputy Mayor Lavoie as well.
But you brought those documents to that meeting.
I only brought what I thought I might need for the other items on the agenda. That was not the only thing on the agenda. So bringing them to the meeting doesn't mean that I was wanting to refer to them.
Those were the only two documents you brought to the meeting. So continue on, and hopefully, you know, you understand the comments I've advised you on.
Before being elected to council, township staff contacted us about our rental, providing written confirmation to the effect that we are able to prove we are not in violation. Once elected to council, township staff advised me to apply for a zoning change. I proceeded to make an application at a cost of $600 plus. During the DSC meeting, when the application was heard, I referred to court documents to support my application. I believe these were the OLT and factum documents. At that time, no objections were raised. Subsequently, a member of council approached me asking for a copy of the documents as they were not aware of their existence. I was surprised to learn the council had not received these documents during closed sessions, especially on the topic involving thousands of dollars in legal fees. I remember during orientation, all members of council were requested to include all of the council with circulation of information.
You're veering outside again. The documents that you provided are provided to us in closed, and because you'd recused yourself from the matter, you know. So once again, I'm asking you, I think what we're trying to get to is if you have comments regarding the findings in the report and the sanctions that have been suggested.
Okay, let me jump ahead then. Thank you very much. This brings us to the issue of the Hawkstone Hall meeting, November 26th. I was sent an email invitation to attend this hall meeting and given 3 days to respond. This came at a very demanding time on my community involvement schedule. I was working daily, including the day of the meeting, to help bring Mystical Lights show together for the month of December through Christmas. Despite this, I felt an obligation to attend what I believe to be a Ward 5 meeting as stated. Upon arrival, I discovered it was not confined to Ward 5 residents, as there appeared to be residents from other wards in the township. I had difficulty understanding why all members of council were not in attendance, or if they were invited. The invitation stated the mayor and deputy mayor would be in attendance and they would hope that I would be available as well. So I'll jump ahead again. There were 3 items on the agenda: cannabis, short-term rentals, and Aurelia annexation. The Aurelia annexation and cannabis took about 15 minutes. The rest of the time was related to the STRs, which is what this is all about. Make me jump ahead here, so it's going to take me a minute here to get sorted out. During this time, a member of the audience directed questions to me in an aggressive, interrogating demeanor regarding my inferences to the factum document I presented to council. During this engagement, I made it clear any reference I may have made about this document being a court decision, I was mistaken, and it was an error, which drew a round of applause from the audience. So I made it clear, and the audience recognized it. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of council? Any comments or questions? Sure, Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Greenlaw, to Mr. Ewart. Am I correct in your explanation of the sanction that it's a cumulative total to a total of a certain amount over time? So I believe 90 days would be the maximum. So did you referred to this culminating to the upper tier of sanctions? So am I correct in the original 60 days plus 15 days equals 75 days cumulatively?
Through your worship, that's the math. I'm not required or obligated or necessary having to take in past decisions, but when matters such as this, your worship, we've turned around or involved the very same documents, it was a factor that I took into account. But I think it's important to note too that the amount of the sanction being proposed in this matter is not reflective of, if you will, the behavior. Penalties that are often imposed are meant to be corrective, not punitive. It is a factor when I think of what, or believe what the appropriate sanction is. It's balanced, and I trust it to be balanced. I hope it's balanced and it's proportionate. I took into account a number of factors in arriving at that number, but the sanction itself, or the acknowledgement that there was a breach, is the more, I think, severe to recognize that this is the second time I've had to deal with the very same member with the greatest respect and with the very same documents. So even though I did not necessarily calculate the numbers as being on the upper range, I just made that statement that on the same two reports with the same two documents, the same issues, we are now at 75 days. I could have gone up to 90 even on this one if I thought it was fitting. So I'm not governed by a cumulative number on any reports I do. It's just unfortunate that I've had to do two reports on the very same issue.
Thank you. Any other members at this time? Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you to the Integrity Commissioner. Regarding this council meeting today, I wish to point out the last conversation I had with you, which I kept notes. You indicated you wanted to bring closure to this and did not see this going any further with any penalty or sanctions. I find your notes contradictory to those statements.
Your worship, I certainly, and again, I've got to be very careful because I'm bound by confidentiality in terms of anything I discuss with the member of council. I think it's in the best interest of all involved in this that closure is brought to this. It is obviously my role to impose what I believe to be a sanction or the penalty or the nature of the sanction or the reprimand. It is my requirement, and as indicated in the report, your worship, when there's a finding of a breach of the code of conduct, there has to be some form of sanction, because otherwise the code of conduct might be very well undermined if there is not. And I think in this particular case, your worship, I don't need to defend the position I arrived at, but I think just reflecting on what has happened here, I think I've been most fair and balanced and proportionate in my findings.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ewart, for that response. Councillor Young.
Yes, just a comment to Mr. Ewart. I read the report, of course, as all other council members have, and as you have indicated in your report, it's pretty straightforward. There's only a few facts involved in whether what occurred did occur, or alleged to have occurred did occur. I don't see any bias or impartiality in there. And it's a good report, as much as I can say, but on it, and I just want to make that comment. I don't think, given the facts in here, that any reasonable person could come to any other conclusion as you have, given the findings of your investigation. But just one question. Did you find the gentleman, Mr. Schell, to be credible? I see in this report he's been forthright with you and honest, and I just want your view on that.
Thank you. Through your worship, part of my role when conducting an inquiry is to accept the evidence at face. This is not sworn evidence. I make that very clear as part of my process to anyone I speak to. I'm not taking your evidence under oath. The expectation is that you will provide truthful answers to me. So in questions posed to the member, I believe his answers were forthright, and he was candid. And so that is what forms the basis. And I can also say that about the complainant. Likewise, as I say, it's not a very complicated matter, but the responses from the complainant were equally as credible. So then this is maybe the difficult part of the job, is to assess this on a balance of probabilities as to what in fact happened. And you could see by the report that I did not make certain findings, but what I found were based on, I think, undisputed facts. And those undisputed facts, unfortunately, did result in a finding that there had been a contravention of those relevant sections of the municipal code of conduct, namely 4.1A and F. So yes, that. I had no reason to not believe what the member was telling me, nor for that matter, what the complainant was telling me. And I arrived at the facts as I did, having, of course, looked at an earlier decision. But again, I wasn't necessarily guided by that earlier decision. I think that's important to point out, Your Worship. These are all very much independent. It's just that in this particular case, rather unique, we're talking about the same member of council with the same two documents. So I couldn't help but have regard to an earlier decision. But I guess to answer the question absolutely directly, yes, I found both parties credible, and I found both parties being truthful. And with that in mind, I then arrived at a decision which I thought reflected the evidence received.
Thank you, Mr. Ewart.
Any other member of council? Deputy Mayor Lavoie?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner, are members of council bound to the code of conduct, whether in council or in the public?
Through your worship, my position is they are. When you take the oath of office, you're also taking on an obligation to adhere to the code of conduct at all times. And the reason I say that is because the reality is often if something happens, it's not Mr. So-and-so, it's Councillor so-and-so. And I think that's not only is an expectation of the public, but I think it also serves to prevent anyone behaving on council that would in any way bring the municipality in disrepute. So my position is the code of conduct is always with those members. And again, I think we all know it extends not only to members, but local boards and members of committee. But when there is a council meeting, or when there is a meeting in which a member of council is attending in the capacity as a councillor, the code of conduct certainly has application and has to always be in the back of one's mind. And for that reason, I accepted the fact that this was not a regular meeting of council, but it was a meeting in which members of council were present, and the attendance was in capacity as a member of council for Oro-Medonte.
Councillor Young.
Yes, Mr. Ewart, I agree with you that you're a councillor 24 hours a day. I don't see it any different than being a police officer where you're sworn in, as we all were on council here. You're a police officer 24 hours a day, and you're a councillor 24 hours a day. So I agree with you.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Lavoie?
Is it, under the legislation, is it permissible to recommend changes to the, to your recommendations, either in greater or lesser than what has been suggested in your recommendations?
Through your worship, no. You can accept the report or the recommendations, but the recommendations are what they are. So in terms of varying sanctions or other recommendations, it's my position, council is not entitled to do that. Council has the option of imposing any and all recommendations suggested, but to vary, for example, the amount of days, or vary any type of wording or requirement in the recommendations. My position is no, you cannot.
Supplemental?
Yes, through you to the member. Do you have any remorse whatsoever about this?
How do I answer that? You were present at the hearing or at the meeting, and to ask, not to ask a question for a question, but did you not hear me tell everybody there that I was mistaken?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the member, I did hear that, and I also heard you today indicate that this was a witch hunt. So I'm clearly not fully satisfied that there's an acceptance of the circumstances that arose on that day, or the consequences that were delivered or recommended here today, that they will have any effect.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Madam Clerk?
when council is finished debating, perhaps it would be, may I suggest a break? And then council can come back?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No, no, I guess just a couple of things that come to my mind that I want to point out that I find concerning. One is I did state to you, Councillor Schell, when you came in, because we all saw the questions at that time, and I pointed to the questions and I said, if you need any assistance with these, or you want me to closed discussion on this matter rather than it turn into the position that you felt yourself very uncomfortable, I said, let me know and I'll shut it down. So I did try to preface, because I knew it could turn maybe uncomfortable for you, and I wanted to be there because my job as mayor is to support my councillors, and you know, and that's why I think it's important that when you get into an area where you're not have full clarity, that you reach out, and whether it's to me or to the integrity commissioner, to get guidance, and hopefully you know, I'm able to provide that for you. The other thing is, I know you came to me 3 days before and said you just got notification of that meeting, but I think it was just an error in memory, because you replied electronically that we were all reached out to weeks prior to that, saying that I will be there. So I think that's where you kind of felt that you were notified at the last minute, but you were actually notified, you know, a week and a half anyways, or 2 weeks prior to, because the electronic email trail was there. The only other thing I want to clarify is the reason why there, like any one of our town hall meetings, and we had, I think, 4 or 5 of them during the month of December, no town hall had more than 3 council members, because there's a quorum rule that we try to respect and uphold as council members when we go to public meetings like that. So just to bring clarity to that, and like I said, I don't like being in these situations, but I know you did apologize and say that you did not, you misunderstood and didn't, like, now you understood it, but then almost immediately in your next breath you held them up and said, but I believe in these facts and these are facts. So that's why I'm concerned that I really hope that, you know, you understand now what you were presenting were not court documents, and they were factums, which are very different. And the one factum that you were providing was from one side of the argument, and at that point in time there had already been a decision made to allow it to go to the Court of Appeal. So what happens is Part A and Part B become irrelevant because the decision is Part C, and that's the only thing that really matters. So you know, as I said, I hope now you understand, and I think what the deputy is saying is, and I, you know, I know you're a good man, and you would hopefully do everything within your power to make sure we don't go down this road again. Councillor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to the member. I will agree. Councillor Shell, you're a good man. You apologized to council in relation to the first situation that we've been talking about. And you said you apologized to us for ending up in this situation. And yet here we are again. And I know this doesn't reflect well on you, but it also reflects on the rest of council. And I truly hope we don't end up here again. Thanks.
Okay. So, Councillor Young?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Councillor, I brought forward the fact that I found you to be forthright and honest in your answers, given the facts and the situation. But I want to ask you directly, given all that's occurred here, the both investigations regarding short-term rentals, do you believe that they are legal?
You know what, I don't...
The court deems them legal, not me.
Okay, you know what, I think we're getting outside of the parameters, and I apologize, but anyway, so we'll, if there's nothing else, then I guess what needs to be decided is the motion will be to receive the report and the recommendations, or if there's any, or to deny the recommendations, or to modify them however, but I need to know where council wants to go, and if somebody wants to put forward a suggestion, please. Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yeah, I think the commissioners indicated we're unable to modify the recommendations. Is that correct? So it's either accept them or not. Decline them, I suppose.
Through your worship, that's correct. Council certainly has the liberty to adopt all or any, but in terms of varying the recommendations, that's my role, and my recommendations to council are such. So council is at liberty to accept all or of the recommendations, or not at all. But that is again called council's decision, as I indicated in the report, and that's what the legislation reflects.
Okay, so I guess then the motion would be, Madam Clerk, we could have you read the motion that's prepared, and then it would either be to accept them or deny them. So it's either accept them in their entirety or deny them in their entirety. That is the only options on before us, correct?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, my apologies, Madam Clerk. Councillor Clark has a question, and then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just would like extreme clarity here. We could, for example, accept Mr. Ewart's suggestion of 1 and 2 and not 3. We could pick individual ones. We just can't modify them. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that is indeed correct. You could take 1 and 2 and not 3 and 4 or 5. But you can't vary or supplement with the recommendations. It's any or all as presented.
Okay. So does someone want to put a motion forward, or Madam Clerk, read the motion, and then we can move from there.
So without calling a mover or a seconder, be it resolved that the report dated April 19th, 2024 from John Heward O'Dwyer, Integrity Commissioner, IC, written report be received and adopted. That Council supports the recommendations outlined in the Integrity Commissioner's report as follows. The member be sanctioned to a reprimand, that the Treasurer be directed to suspend pay for 15 days of compensation pay for the member of Council commencing with the next pay period following passing of this resolution. Or or to decline.
Okay. Okay, so Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Yeah, Madam Clerk, sorry. Are there not two more parts of that motion? Member be provided with a copy of the report and file, and that the member review the code of conduct in the light of the findings of this report, and that member, to the extent possible, avoid any further references to the factum, which is probably a moot point now, as a decision of the divisional court, since they've already decided, so the fifth one could be scratched.
We can add that. The counselor and all counselors have been provided with the code of conduct. But we certainly can add that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk, but not the rest of us are being required to review it,
Okay.
which might be
Fair enough.
important. Thank you.
If I can have a few minutes to amend the motion.
Yes, please. Councillor Shell.
Thank you, Mayor Lavoie. Through you to the clerk. Should council decide to dock me 15 days pay, is there a chance that that 15 days pay could be donated to a charity of my choice?
Your worship, if I can be of assistance?
Please.
No, because that would suggest that pay is going to the member who's then directing it to a charity. So that would effectively bypass that recommendation. It would be money being directed by the member rather than going to him. I understand the thought, but that would still result in direction of funds. So no, it's not. I'm going to suggest, sir, it's not possible.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarity, Mr. Ewart. Madam Clerk, you're fine now? No.
I am.
Would you like to reread the motion and then council can vote and decide?
May I have first a mover and a seconder?
Councillor Young and Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
Okay. Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Young. Be it resolved that the report dated April 19th, 2024 from John Ewart, O'Dwyer, Integrity Commissioner IC, rewritten report be received and adopted. That council support the recommendations outlined in the Integrity Commissioner's report as follows. The member be subject to a reprimand, that the treasurer be directed to suspend pay for 15 days of compensation pay for the member of council commencing with the next pay period following the passing of this resolution, that the member be provided with a copy of this report, and that the member review the code of conduct, and in light of the findings of this report, that the member, to the extent possible, avoid any further reference to the factum as a decision of the divisional court having any legal force and effect on the operation of short-term rentals within the township of Oro-Medonte.
Okay. Any questions or comments for clarity on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Well, that'll conclude that topic. And Mr. Ewart, if you could now move on to item 16C, the verbal report, please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also had the occasion, Your Worship, to address a complaint arising against a member of council dated January 18, 2023. It was alleging contravention of the municipal code of conduct. various sections, which I had addressed in an earlier report, but the report itself, the inquiry was summarily concluded as a result of repeated attempts to contact the complainant to understand exactly the basis on which the complaint was being advanced. My inquiry in this matter was summarily closed on March 25, 2024, with notice to both the complainant and the member of council. And in doing so, Your Worship, the decision which I have the authority to summarily dismiss complaints was twofold. One, it was based on the fact that no response had been forthcoming to the request for an interview in order to obtain evidence necessary to conclude or to conduct the inquiry. And secondly, that the complaint itself had been the subject matter of an earlier report that I had addressed. And in that regard, I viewed the matter as being raised judicata. So on those two bases, Your Worship, that inquiry, which was assigned file number 2185-018 for the Township of Oro-Medonte, that's an internal file number, Your Worship, was considered closed, and therefore no further steps or inquiry is underway.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, kind of doesn't make sense to open the floor for discussion, I guess, about something if it's not there. So, anyways, well, thank you very much, Mr. Ewart, for your updates and presentation, and wish you all the best for the rest of the week. And like I said, it's don't take it personally. We don't necessarily wish to see you, but it's with all due respect, right? So have a great week, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Worship, and I thank Council as well for allowing me to attend virtually. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to present these reports to Council and to answer questions that Council may have in these rather important matters.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
And I would encourage Council, whenever you get into those situations where it's questionable and you're not sure, Mr. Ewart, that is why he's there, is to help advise us and make sure we don't step out of the line. Okay? Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is there a motion to receive that communication?
Yes, there is. Moved by Lavoie, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the verbal information from John Ewart, Ewart O'Dwyer, Integrity Commissioner, verbal report be received.
Okay. All in favor? That is passed. Now we'll go back to item 8, deputations. Is Mr. Ruffle available now? Oh, no, perfect. Sorry, you're here. So, Mr. Ruffle, if you'd like to come forward, adjust the mic so that you're speaking into it, because this meeting is being recorded and streamed. And if you want to proceed when ready, as a rule, we allow 10 minutes per. And are you going? I'm just asking because if you're going to need a little more than that, then I will ask Council for approval to go beyond the 10 minutes.
We might need a couple extra minutes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So Council, I'm going to ask if by a sign of voting, are you okay with us making an exception to the bylaw to allow us to go beyond 10 minutes with Mr. Ruffle's presentation? And we do have that, Madam Clerk, and to be noted. And please, Mr. Ruffle, when you're ready.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to council. My name is Terry Ruffle, and I brought our dynamic duo here today, Todd Van Zulicom. So Todd and I are both residents of Horseshoe Valley, and Todd and I are also fourth line rink rats. We're part of about 35 volunteers that try to look after our fourth line park rink for many, many years now, probably over 10 years. Our presentation today is in response to the Recreation Master Plan, specifically outdoor rinks. So to lead us off, Todd, do you want to give us the threat?
Sure. So talking a little bit about outdoor rinks, the threat that we're facing right now are, first of all, outdoor rinks are a Canadian tradition.
could you pull the mic in front
Oh,
of you?
sure, yeah, no problem, yeah.
Just for our public audience
Got
on
it.
live stream.
Outdoor rinks are a Canadian tradition. Most in this room have probably experienced skating on outdoor rinks, on ponds, whatever. Some of us maybe have experienced skating on places like the Rideau Canal. Ponds, outdoor rinks, even the Rideau Canal are facing the same threat, which of course is climate change.
I'll give you a little bit of the horseshoe experience that we've had over the last few years. Our past experience has been to open the rinks at Christmas time, so we get the kids out on the holidays. The last 3 years we've opened January 6th, so we missed the holidays. January 23rd this year, and January 16th. So we haven't been doing very well about opening. January 23rd was about a week away from not opening, so we're getting very close to, that's the end of outdoor rinks. Once you get near March, the sun plays havoc and the pavement starts to show through, so you've got a very short period of time. I'll share with you the Canadian experience. Last year, as Todd alluded to, the Rideau Canal stayed closed. Part of the canal opened the third week of this year. Montreal last year, amazing enough, one rink open and it had artificial ice. Is this our future? Well, no guarantees. There's a local expert studying Lake Simcoe. He said he didn't know what the temperature was going to be, but he could tell us what the trend was going to be, and the trend is gradual warming.
So a little bit about the importance of outdoor rinks. According to the Horseshoe Valley Property Owners Survey, we did a survey, 95% of the respondents thought that the outdoor rinks are important and that they should be maintained. A recently completed Parks and Rec master plan survey shows that 27% actually use the outdoor rinks, so a large number of people, and nearly half would like to see outdoor rinks developed, and 25% would like to see the existing rinks that we have actually enhanced. So what's come out is that it's loud and clear, outdoor rinks are a Canadian tradition, people do want them. So using artificial ice as a response to what we're experiencing with the effects of global warming, the use of chillers to freeze and maintain the ice allows the rink to be open longer and earlier. We estimate that it's possible they could open as early as December 1st and close after March break into early April. So the rink is staying open for months as opposed to just a few weeks and sometimes a few days in the winter.
Just to give you experience, this year we opened about 5 weeks. In the interim of the 5 weeks, we lost the rink at least twice. So we were really down to about 2 to 3 weeks of usable ice. Part of the decision that'll have to be made is the Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park has many advantages to hosting artificial ice improvement. The park is a regional park with a broad area from the township. Most settlement areas are within 20 minutes drive radius, and the Horseshoe Valley corridor has a significant population growth. The park is host to the Oro-Medonte pickleballers. I'm sure you've heard of those lately. And the Oro-Medonte Tennis Club, both are township-wide programs. The park is adjacent to the elementary school, the new elementary school, so it'll be a huge fit to have an improved rink next door to our community center and the school. Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park was built on a partnership with the community, and these partnerships continue for its operation. Tennis club and over 30 volunteers supporting the outdoor rink. The location is a central and easy access to Horseshoe, Sugarbush, Quakers, Simcoe Estates, Edgar, Braystone, Moonstone, Eagles Rest, Eagles Landing. Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park offers easy access to a wide circle. So the label, or regional park, that's important. It's a regional park fix the fourth line rink. As you know, and if you look in the master plan, the growth of population is going to be in the Horseshoe Craighurst areas over the next 10 years. The formula for success, it says location, location, location. I think these provide services where a large majority of residents reside. So let's build something right to the growth areas.
So looking at the Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park, there's been a proven history of township and community partnership. When you visit the park, you'll see the stones that are circling the parking lot area. There's names of numerous residents and companies who supplied their time and volunteer efforts to the park. The rink pad, existing now, playground equipment, and the pavilion are the result of township community efforts from the park's inception over 13 years ago. So making a strategic choice as to where a rink should be placed, is it everything for everybody and everywhere? The township is largely rural, so using hubs for service makes sense, with the school being there as well. In the case of artificial ice, Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park is the hub that makes strategic sense. It's all centered around the school, the park, the proposed recreation area there. The artificial ice at the Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park meets the goals of building a healthy community. So making the investment, obviously artificial ice service comes with a large capital and operating costs, such as construction, renewal operating costs, maintenance, repairs, equipment, staffing, volunteers, of course. We can make this project happen in partnership with the township and the community. And it's vital that we draw upon the expertise and professionalism of our staff.
So a case in review, is there a threat to outdoor rinks? The answer to that is yes. Is there a solution? Well, yes. Mother Nature assisted by artificial ice. If council invests in artificial ice, is there a strategic location? Guthrie maybe, but certainly the Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park. Is there a proven partnership? Yes, with the Horseshoe community. The township's recreation mission talks about promoting healthy lifestyles, connecting families and neighbors. Does improving the rink with artificial ice meet this criteria? It's another yes.
So our recommendation is that council supports completing a feasibility study for improvements to the HVMP, Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park, specifically artificial ice shop options, and report back to council with detailed information.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Members of council, are there any questions you have for our presenters? Councillor Hutchison.
I didn't even put up my card. You read my mind. No, I just want to say thank you very much, Mr. Ruffle and Mr. Van Zulikom, for such a concise report to council. I know that you're both very passionate about this, and we've had many conversations, Terry, you and I have, with regard to the possibility of this, and I really appreciate you bringing it forward to the rest of council.
Thank you. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to the gentleman there. Great initiative. Just the only question I have is about a Zamboni. Like, we've got an ice surface and I'm a goaltender, so I know what it's like getting that ice scraped off, and how do you figure on accommodating that?
It's all part of the feasibility study, so it's something we need to figure out.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'll echo my colleagues' comments. Thank you so much for bringing this as an avid hockey player and have kids who play hockey. I greatly appreciate the sentiment. It's been a tough couple years for backyard rinks. One question I have is would you guys have any expertise, maybe not expertise, but knowledge of what the ultimate cost, not of the feasibility study, but the ultimate cost of a refrigerated ice rink may be? Because it's one thing to have the study done, but if the cost of that installation is $1 million, for example, then it becomes a harder pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm. The answer to that is, and you'll love this, maybe, depends. There's real opportunities here that it could very well be over 300,000. There's opportunities with the Trillium Foundation. Laurie and I, Councillor Hutchison and I were talking about earlier, a $200 million fund for recreation and sports. So another great opportunity. As Todd talked about in his presentation, it's been a great partnership over the years. We've done a lot of fundraising. The playground, I think we raised 50,000 toward that, 20,000 toward the pavilion. So there's a proven track record there. So can't tell you the cost, the net cost. It'll be expensive, but there are opportunities to reduce that.
Councillor Bard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you for the presentation. Like you said, most of us have had time on these outdoor rinks and tried to make them work when nature doesn't cooperate. I guess my question to you, I'm struggling with this a bit. What would be sort of the environmental cost to this? So we're talking financial, but it seems to me that climate change has created this problem, and I feel like this problem might be contributing to climate change. So have you looked into the environmental footprint of such a project, or is that considered in your feasibility study?
Yes.
Sorry, that's part of the feasibility study, or you've looked into the environmental
No,
cost?
we haven't looked at it, and yes, that would be one of the details we'd look at.
Right. Okay. Deputy Mayor LeBlanc, then Councillor Young.
Yeah, thank you very much for a very interesting proposal. I have skated on the Rideau Canal during my younger years going to university. I would just wanted to address the concern maybe that Councillor Bard has. The contribution to global warming would be dependent, I think, largely on the grid that supplies the power to the refrigeration plant. And since the grid in Ontario is largely non-carbon, I think your concern might not be too much of a concern, given we stay in that trend. But anyway, it's a good idea. It'd be great for the community, and I hope it can come to fruition. Thank you.
Councillor Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I know that Moonstone has experienced the same problem up there with, you know, a reduced time on ice type of thing, given Mother Nature, like you say, sort of thing. I'm just curious about something about the survey that was done, a questionnaire that was done. Was asked where they live, where they reside. You've indicated it's a central thing and everybody has access to it. Was there any requests as to where they live?
And it was done through the HVPOA, so Horseshoe Valley Property Owners Association. So you'd be looking at Horseshoe Highlands, Cathedral Pines, down into the valley as well. Wouldn't have had Sugarbush in that survey, but the catchment area of the HVPOA.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. I understand, like, with the climate change that we've experienced over the last number of years, it's become more extreme, and it really definitely shortens a lot of the winter activities, whether it's snowmobiling, skiing, or outdoor rinks. And you know, if it can be offset economically without, you know, so that's the whole point behind your feasibility studies. Then it would be something we definitely look at. But like everything else, it's also about the price tag and where we are from a township, and hopefully the community rallies behind it and can help make it a economically feasible, you know, reality before long. Okay?
We hear you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is there a motion?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a motion to receive, please?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that the deputation by Terry Ruffle and Todd Van Zulicom recommendation for improvements to Horseshoe Valley Memorial Park and feasibility study to consider artificial ice be received and referred to staff for a report back to council.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. This brings us to item 8B, presentation by Sid Vanderven of RJ Burnside and Associates. Mr. Vanderven, please come to the podium and adjust the mic so that you're speaking into it, just to make sure the people at home and watching it live streaming can hear, and proceed when ready, please.
I am ready. Thank you for the opportunity, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview on the Drainage Act and a bit of law as it relates to drainage. We are blessed to live in Ontario and we get an abundance of precipitation, all good things. It's awesome things to have. But it also creates drainage issues. And I've worked in municipalities all across Ontario, and if there's one thing we have in common is we all deal with drainage issues. They come in all different forms: agricultural, residential, commercial, roads. There's all sorts of drainage issues. And the common law as it relates to drainage is not conducive to resolving them. For example, if you remove a beaver dam from a natural water course, you could be held liable for damages for releasing that water, but also passing it on to someone else. If you, the courts have said that surface water, so any water that's not in a natural water course, has no right of drainage. So if you have surface water flowing downhill, the courts have said you don't have the right. A lower property owner can actually put up berms and dikes and stop water from coming onto your property. If you collect or concentrate it, such as road ditches or agricultural tile drainage systems or curb and gutter, and you discharge it onto somebody else, you could be held liable for the damages. So all of these common law principles are not conducive to solving drainage issues. They're conducive to creating court cases and bad neighbors. And so into that mix, the province passed the Drainage Act. And I know it's been used in Oro-Medonte, but I don't think it's been used extensively. And I want to give you a bit of an overview of the Drainage Act. It is a process to override the common law as it relates to drainage, to find a solution without going to court. It's a user pay system. It provides the municipality, who is the keeper or the administrator of the process, the ability to access private land in order to manage these systems and construct them. There's public consultation involved. There's also provincial appeal bodies that are involved, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And there's provincial grants for assessments on agricultural land that are provided through the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. Next slide. Don't know where. Okay, there, thank you. So the process starts with the petition, a petition by landowners. And the petition is actually a legal document that initiates the process. It starts or triggers the process that ultimately results in a communal drainage system. It's regulated. The form of petition is regulated by the regulations under the Drainage Act, and everything, again, considering that it's user pay, any petitioners would signing a petition would be financially responsible for some of the costs. The Drainage Act is predominantly used in agricultural areas of the province, but it's not restricted to those areas. So the petition form is completed by the owners and it would be filed with the municipality. And the municipal council then considers that petition and they have to make a decision. And normally you would say, yes, we're going to accept the petition and move on. If it conflicts with your official plan, so for example, somebody's petitioning to drain a provincially significant wetland, you can say no. But otherwise, if it is, we've got an issue and we'd like this problem resolved, then normally you would say yes to the petition and move on. So then you notify the petitioners that you've accepted the petition and you would appoint an engineer. The engineer gets appointed by bylaw or resolution because that authority gives that bylaw or resolution gives the engineer the authority to enter onto private land to do whatever work is necessary in terms of surveying. The very first thing that the engineer does is has an on-site meeting with the property owners, certainly in the immediate area and quite often with everyone in the watershed of the potential drainage system. And they would go, we've got this petition. What are the issues? What are we trying to solve? What are we trying to fix here? So that's key information that the engineer would be trying to identify. Then there's an optional step in the process, which is a preliminary report. That gives the engineer the opportunity to explore potentially different routes that the drain could go, maybe different forms, just examine some of these options and the costs associated with that, and report back to council and the petitioners with the findings. Assuming that they pick an option and going on, then the engineer would go out and do detailed surveying and design work, coming up with the solution, and the engineer would produce a report, and the report would specify where the drain's going to be located, what it's going to look like, how it's going to be cost shared, and the engineer has to make sure that it complies with all regulations. It all gets wrapped up into a report, then it gets presented to council at a public meeting, and at this meeting, council makes a decision whether or not they want to proceed, and also the petitioners make a decision whether or not they want to proceed. And then there's a bylaw that provisionally adopts the engineer's report. So 2 readings are given to the bylaw. It means that you as council agree in principle with what's being proposed in the report, but it opens it up for appeals. There are 3 appeal bodies. The first one is the Court of Revision, which is a municipally appointed appeal body that just hears appeals on assessments. Surprise, surprise, the most controversial thing about municipal drains is my share is too much and somebody else should be paying more. And so the Court of Revision is the local appeal body set up to try to offset or deal with those local issues as much as possible. If it doesn't work, then there's a further appeal to the tribunal. I'm not going to read the whole name, but the tribunal is a provincially appointed appeal body that hears technical type appeals and appeals from the decision of the Court of Revision. And the third appeal body is the referee, which is, a referee has all the powers of a judge of the Superior Court of Justice, and so they deal with legal matters. After the appeals have been heard, the bylaw is given 3rd and final reading, and then they go and construct the drainage system in accordance with the engineer's report. So they would tender it, go through the procurement process, and then build it. And then at the end of the process, they would tally up all the costs. And costs include engineering, construction, permit fees, allowances or compensation provided to property owners for damages. All the aspects of a cost of a project would be tallied up, and it would be distributed amongst the watershed of the drain in accordance with the engineer's report. The municipality would also apply for whatever grants are available. Now, again, how does this apply to you? Well, you have a few municipal drains. One of the ones that is being encountered right now is municipal drain number 7, which was first constructed in 1910 by a bylaw 479, and there was some improvement that was done. So it's an existing municipal drain, and you as a municipality have a responsibility to manage that drain. So some of the drain management responsibilities, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but you have a duty, you have a legal responsibility to do maintenance and repair on this drain. It is your municipal infrastructure. Even though it's located predominantly on private land, it's your infrastructure and you have a duty to manage it. So maintenance and repair is the predominant thing that's done. Repair is restoring the drain to what's the specifications that's in the original report. And the work is normally done by a drainage superintendent, and it's usually triggered by a landowner request, but it doesn't need to be because it's municipal infrastructure. If you think that the work needs to be done, you can initiate that work. So the issues with municipal drain number 7, as Justin has relayed, is there have been requests for work to be done on municipal drain number 7. However, through exhaustive research, he has been unable to identify any plans, profiles, and specifications. We've got a copy of the engineer's report. We have a copy of the bylaw, but none of the details that specify what the drain is. And the assessment schedule is also out of date. So the recommendation is, let's make do a drain improvement project. So what is a drain improvement project process? It's very similar as to the development of a brand new drain, except you don't have a petition of landowners. It is your infrastructure already. It is your responsibility to do some work on this. So it usually is initiated by a recommendation by staff or the drainage superintendent. Again, it's not a property owner petition. Then council would consider that recommendation, make a decision, and then notify the Conservation Authority and any First Nation territory. And again, council appoints an engineer. The engineer has the on-site meeting similar to the petition drain process. Again, optional step of a preliminary report, survey design, and develop a brand new report with new plans, profile specifications, new assessment schedule. And then again, appeals and bylaw provisionally adopting the report, and then go through the appeal stage, and then pass the bylaw, do the drain improvement work, apply for grants, and assess the costs out. So it's key to remember, number one is it is your infrastructure to manage. Number two, it is all user pay. Now, some of the costs will be assessed to the municipality for any roads or properties that you may have in the watershed of the drain. That usually ends up being in the order of 5 to 10%. Typically, it's going to be very dependent on the situation, but that's a ballpark figure. But anyway, so that's the Drainage Act process in a nutshell. I would be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions at this time? Oh, sorry. Councillor Schell.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. Through you to the gentleman here. Where I saw the map and it showed the Warminster area. Where is that drain terminating?
So I'm going to defer to Justin because I've never seen this drain other than the map.
Through you to Councillor Shaw. The drain terminates on line 10 immediately south of the Warminster side road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bard.
Sorry, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in this situation, the residents haven't petitioned for this, but the work would be done and then they would have to share in the cost. I'm not quite sure with this specific drain number 7.
Through your worship to Councillor Bard, residents have already made requests of the township to maintain the drain, and we are having a challenge with maintaining the drain because we don't know exactly how deep or how wide or how do we maintain it when we don't have drawings associated with this. They have been lost over time. An exhaustive search was undertaken, but to no avail.
If I may, Your Worship,
please.
Just a little bit more information. The petition is only used to establish a brand new drain. After that, it's your infrastructure, and I believe that that requests for maintenance and repair have been received, which triggers the potential liability for your municipality.
If I may, Mayor Greenlaw, through to Councillor Bard, I think the other component here too is maintenance hasn't been conducted since 1955. So there's probably, as you can appreciate, a number of properties that have changed hands, and part of the process is consultation. So as the process evolves, there will be notification. There are those consultation components that are prescriptive as part of the process.
Deputy Mayor Lavoie.
1955. So through you to operations, that's nearly 70 years. Why is there a continuing obligation? Would the obligation not have extinguished itself due to statutory limitations, or, because I noticed there are wetlands now, or they appear to be wetlands that exist along the route of this drainage. And is the liability flow come from the fact that the lands are now flooding because of events, and so the owners are becoming concerned as to the integrity of their property? Long question, sorry, thank you.
I'll handle part of it through your worship. The legal obligation comes from the bylaw and report that you have. So the Drainage Act says any drainage works constructed under a bylaw under this act shall be maintained and repaired, and it's a duty, it's an obligation. So there's no time limit on it. There are drains that have been established in the 1800s that still continue to exist. It's just that in this case, there hasn't been any work done on it because nobody's really identified it as an issue, but now it is. And because there have been submissions of requests for maintenance, there's another section of the act that says if you get notice and you fail to perform, you could potentially be held liable for damages that result. And so that's why this action is being taken now.
Okay. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So this is obviously a legacy, I'm going to say it's a legacy issue because it's a very old drainage system, and the obligation is created by the bylaw, and we are no longer protected because there's been a request for maintenance on that. I guess my question is, are there other municipally owned drains that haven't been maintained for this reason or another, but the bylaw is still in effect? Do we have any other drains that could become very expensive for us?
Through your worship to Councillor Clark, there are 3 drains in the township. There are the Forest Home Drain, there are the Pure Brook Drain, and the drain number 7. We do walk those drains annually just to see if there's any debris or any blockage in there. So as of right now, those drains currently do not require a major clean out, but they do require some minor maintenance to remove beaver dams and some other things that are impacting the flow.
Okay. Supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Metris. Appreciate that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, do we have the appropriate schematics and design information for the other 2 drains?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Clark, yes, we have the ad information.
Okay, good. Councillor Schell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Greenlaw, through you to Justin. I think I know what you're saying. That terminates at line 10 and probably the Warminster Side Road. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Schell, yes, that is correct.
So from my driving that road regularly, there's a waterfall there that must have some kind of a control on it. Are we responsible for that as well?
Through your worship to Councillor Schell, that is a privately owned dam. We don't have control over that now, but maybe perhaps through this process we will have the ability to regulate the flow through there.
Okay, so then when that water goes over that waterfall and goes underneath line 10, it must terminate in the Coldwater River somewhere. Like, who's responsible for that section? Not us?
If I may, through you, your worship, if it is no longer a municipal drain, if it's a natural water course, there are all sorts of agencies that regulate activities on water courses, but no agency is responsible for managing a water course, a natural water course.
Okay, well, the reason I asked that question is because that must have been a natural water course of some sort originally. So, you know, where does the responsibility of ownership fall?
So through you, your worship, the municipality's responsibility falls with the section of water course that's identified as a municipal drain. So when this drain was originally done, it would have identified the exact start point and end point, and that's what the municipality is responsible for. If further down below its natural water course, that is not something that is your municipality's responsibility. So the report, the plans, profiles adopted by bylaw establish where the drain begins and ends.
I just find it a little confusing as to where the water starts and stops, because there must have been when you take a look at the topography, all that land slopes down into that sort of a valley naturally. So there must have been a natural water course of some sort there at one time, and it was probably widened perhaps to create a drainage ditch. Would that be right?
Through you, Your Worship, absolutely. There are many water courses that were natural originally that have been made into a municipal drain. I'm not sure if you heard this, but one of the ones that's been in the press recently is South Innisfil Creek. I know not your municipality, but it is a municipal drain. It has been for quite some time. And yet it was made into a municipal drain many years ago, and the town of Innisfil just did a major improvement project on that particular water course in order to alleviate flooding drainage issues.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Council, any further questions? Seeing none, I want to thank you very much for taking time to come and present to us. It's very informative, and yeah, it's a bit costly, but we have to do what we're responsible for. So no, I appreciate that. And
thank you,
Mr. Binns.
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. I just wanted to come back to Councillor Clark's question, and the presentation spoke to cost recovery. So that's part of the process, is that the costs, once the engineer's report is completed, there'll be a cost estimate that's provided, and the cost is then can be recovered through the benefiting landowners. So it is a cost recovery proposition. So I just wanted to confirm that the cost of the engineer preparing the report, all the costs associated with the maintenance are recoverable through the benefiting landowners.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Madam Clerk, can we have the motion to receive, please?
Moved by Bard, seconded by Shell. Be it resolved that the presentation by Sid Vanderveen, Public Engineer, R.J. Burnside and Associates, overview of the Drainage Act, be received and considered in conjunction with item 11A.
Okay. Any questions regarding that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is passed. And I believe, Madam Clerk, that brings us to our confirmation bylaw. Am I correct?
Mr. Mayor, we have Justin Maitra's report
My apologies.
on the drainage.
I had that in my notes too, that you had to go back to that.
You're gonna have to excuse me, Mr. Mayor, for,
Okay,
for a
sorry.
moment.
We're gonna break for 5 minutes, if you don't mind, please. Okay?
Okay.
of the Drainage Act and the report.
I know, but he's giving you the quick, this is a practice dress rehearsal.
Yeah, so, okay, yeah, thanks, Yvonne.
Mr. Mayor, we're live.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We're now on item 11A. Mr. Binns and Justin Matris, would you care to comment before we open the floor for discussion?
Thank you, Mayor Greenlaw. I think the presentation by Mr. Vanderveen did a really good job of providing an overview of the Drainage Act and the local situation with drain number 7. The process is outlined both in the presentation and in the report, and we're happy to answer any questions from members of council.
Members of council, I know you asked the most questions during the presentation, but is there any additional questions or clarity that you'd like at this time? Deputy Mayor Lavoie has a question.
Sorry, I'd hate to get between any other councillor and their adjournment. Yes, insofar as drainage is on municipal property, are we responsible for those costs?
Through to the deputy mayor, yes, we would be. We would be assessed the same as every other landowner based on that percentage, and then those costs would be borne by the municipality. We did have a municipal drain that goes through Severn into the township of Oro-Medonte as well. We just concluded that process. And I think the municipal costs were around the $10,000 mark. So just to kind of give you a bit of an order of magnitude.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, the motion, please.
Moved by Bard, seconded by Hutchison. Be it resolved that OCS 2024-15, Justin Matris, Drainage Superintendent, reappointment of an engineer for municipal drain number 7 be received and adopted. That RJ Burnside and Associates Limited be appointed as the municipal drain 7 engineer to prepare a report and maintenance requirements under Section 78 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, following the 30-day notification to the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, NVCA, as required by the Act, and that the Director of Operations and Community Services be authorized to execute the appropriate agreement on behalf of the township.
Thank you. Any questions at this time or clarity of the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Against? That is carried. Madam Clerk, and can we have a confirmation bylaw motion, please?
Moved by Hutchison, seconded by Bard. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-045, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, be engrossed by the clerk, signed and sealed by the mayor.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And may we have a motion to adjourn, Madam Clerk?
Moved by Clark, seconded by Lavoie. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 6:22 p.m.
All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Have yourself a great evening and enjoy the hockey game. And hopefully the Canadian teams win and I'll get to the next round.